This is Andy Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and for the first time in 2021, I'm joined by trainer Dave Coldwell over Zoom. Dave, how are you? How is life?
Not too bad, thanks very much. Not too bad. I'm one of the fortunate ones that can go into the gym and train the fighters. So I'm in a better position than quite a lot of other people, but it has been tougher. It has been tougher. It's not the best time, is it? But you know, we're out of January and into February, so another month gone, and hopefully we're getting close to getting back some sort of social life, normal life.
We certainly hope so, Dave. But just to pick up on that there, you mentioned it's a little tougher this time round. What do you think that is? Because usually, people might just assume because we've become a bit more used to the circumstances we're in, everyone might be a bit more adapt to it. Or how come you feel this one's a little bit tougher?
It's not something we should be getting used to. Being antisocial, not seeing friends and family. It's not something that we should be getting used to. And I think that's the big struggle, my wife's family, where they're very close, everybody's close, and we're used to being around them all the time. They're my family. Do you know what I mean? That's how they are. And to not see them now, it's we used to do barbecues all the time, just go around all the time, and just when we go on walk, call in and things like that. Just things like that you don't see. The grandparents aren't seeing. My little boy, he'd be at his grandma's once, maybe twice a week after school, and just for an hour, just have a bit of tea there, and then then we'll go and get him. They've not had him since March. Same as all grandparents aren't seeing the kids, and this shit where you're just looking at them through a glass window, it's not the same. That's grandkids keep the grandparents young and keep them going. And I've seen you see them age. You see them age when they're not around them anymore. And there's been same as other families. There's been deaths in the families where we haven't seen them for a long time, and now you're not going to see them again. And so it's not something that we should be getting used to. It's not something that should be. People should say, "Oh well, it's been going on that long now. Surely you're used to it." No, because that's what makes us human, isn't it? Social contact and emotions and things like that. So yeah, it's been tough for that reason, but also and I'm one of the lucky ones. I get to go to the gym, I come home. I get to go to the gym, I come home. But that's all I'm doing. And so I'm excited to have fighters on and to be able to go to the bubble. But yeah, there are a lot. Listen, there are people. I said to my kids, when my daughter's 16 and she's missing her friends and things like that, and doing things. She's supposed to have exams this year. It's that final year at school where you get to, as well as studying, you get to have a bit of a laugh and a bit of a giggle because it's winding down towards the end. She's missing out on all that side of things. But we're not living in a high rise or something like that. We're not in a little box where everybody's on top of each other. So we're one of the fortunate ones, and it's been harder for us. So I dread to think what other people are going through now. Other people are handling this.
Dave, like you said at the beginning of this interview, we are hopefully coming towards those brighter times and the lighter times ahead for everybody. Let's get into the boxing talk though, Dave. The first show returns next week for Warrington-Lara, Bill. But let's get into your fight. To start off with, Hopey Price, he returns against Zahid Hussain. Now, I remember doing an interview with you last year, Dave, and you said kind of you had to be careful with the levels that you push your fighters at because there's a pressure in these times to match fighters a lot more kind of hard or evenly. Why is Zahid Hussain though 16-1? Everybody's anticipating a big step up for Hopey. What made you guys come to the decision to face Zahid?
So firstly, it is a big step up, 16-1 versus 3-0. But stepping up in levels and quality of opposition is what needs to be done to bring fighters on anyway, to develop a fighter. If you believe in the talent that your fighter's got I believe 100%. What I see of Hopey Price, this kid is the real deal. What I've seen in him, and it's not just about his boxing skills because he's tall and he's ranger. If it was just because he had the height and reach, this is what we say in the gym. If it was just because it was the height and reach, then you've got a problem when you fight the guys that can get past that height and reach. But, you know, I've had him over the last year. How long have we been together now? Probably about 14, 15 months, something like that. And I've had him sparring high quality opposition, you know, in America, Brandon Valdez, who's 13-year-old at the time, Manny Robo's gym, lightweights out in America, you know, sparring Tucker Khan, over here sparring Lee Wood, Raza Hamza, Jordan Gill constantly, Kid Galahad. The good professional fighters, physically strong, grown men. And I know that the kid can handle things when it's up close, and it's a physical fight as well as a boxing match, and you know, and be able to control somebody at the end of his reach. So because I see what he's capable of doing, and because I know his mentality and how this kid actually is, ticks all the boxes mentality wise. Because all the boxes ticked in that sort of regards, then I look at the opponent and do I think that Hopey Price beats Zahid Hussein? Forget the record. Don't look at the record. Do I think that my man beats this man here? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. If he's sparring the likes of Jordan Gills, your Raz Hamza's 15-0, you know, Kid Galahad's world level. If he's sparring all these sort of guys, what is the point in fighting a guy that's just going to come in and just look to protect himself and just to get through the rounds? It's no good. He won the Junior Olympics. He got robbed in the World Championship final, 2 European golds, fighting good fighters from all around the world. What is the point in him fighting a guy that's just going to come and tuck up? He's not doing anything for his development. If he's doing all this in the gym, but then he goes out to fight and he's fighting a pudding, a guy that's got no ambition and no attitude to win whatsoever, it's not going to bring him on at all. Add to the fact that we're in a pandemic, and it's a case of you fight, you don't know when you're going to fight again. You fight, you need to take these jumps that are going to progress your career in a time duration rather than the amount of fights. So first year as a pro, he was supposed to have 7 fights. He's had 3, but in those 3, his third fight, he fought Johnny Phillips, was a big step up, physically a bigger guy, stronger guy, you know, knocked out welterweight. So he's already had a fight against a guy that came to win. If he hadn't have had that fight and handled things in that certain way, and if he hadn't have done what he's been doing in sparring, and if he hadn't got the mentality, I wouldn't put him in with a 16-1 kid, because he would be thinking, 16-1, shit. Everyone's going 16-1, shit. But he's looking at, can I beat this guy here in front of me? Yeah. I fully believe I can beat him. I'm looking at him thinking, can I beat this guy in front of him? Yeah. I'm like, yeah. And so that's the right match. But Zahid Hussein's a good fighter, going to give him problems, going to ask him questions. That's what I want to bring my fighter on, you know? And I think we need to move away from this fear factor of overprotecting our fighters. It's not, like you say, it's not about being stupid and chuck him in against an absolute killer and this, because he's not experienced. But I look at Zahid Hussein's record, and he's the one man on that record that I wouldn't put Hopey Price in with. No. I'd put him in with every one of them men, you know? So why not? And like I said, the UFC, nobody cares about the records. Fighters win, lose, win. Whether it's a good fight, whether they perform right or what. We need boxing to be a little bit more like that. We need to come away from that mentality of, promoters need to come away from that mentality of, if I stick you in a 50-50 fight and you get beat, discard you. That's what they need to come away with. Because if you want these kind of fights, then if the fighter gets beat, not for 1 minute thinking that Hopey Price is getting beat on this occasion, but if you put your fighter in a 50-50 fight and he gets beat, then he shouldn't just be left on the shelf because you've not fought for a year, or you've not had many fights and you're inexperienced and you go in against a better fighter, it's 50-50 fight, or it's a bit of a gamble, you get beat. The promoter should be like, you know what, he's a good fighter, you learn from that, bring him back, not fuck him off, do you know what I mean, because he got beat. That's how promoters have got to. If they change their attitude, then you'll see more and more fighters and more management teams willing to take that risk, willing to roll that dice. So when the pandemic's gone, this is the way forward for boxing, where the fans are happier because they're seeing more evenly matched fights on paper. And if the fighter goes out there and performs great, then you've got yourself a really good fighter there. If he gets beat, bring him back, because you want the fighters to take the gambles. It's no good saying that. It's no good promoter saying fighters, take the fight. You should be taking that fight. Or if you're going to go anywhere, then these are fights you want to take. But then fucking them off if they get beat.
I remember when Jordan lost his only fight of his professional career, and I remember how devastated you all were, but him in particular. How did you kind of help him to realise that he wasn't effectively the be-all and end-all, and he could come back from it? And we are seeing the fruits of that now with his recent performances.
So it's a process and it takes time. Jordan, I won't lie, Jordan was in a bad spot, and then coupled with the fact that he ended up having that thyroid illness as well, and it was just a horrendous period for him. And then COVID hit, and then it's like when we're fighting. But what he learned from that fight, how he's developed in the gym, he 100%. He has gone another level, not one level, a few levels. We were looking at sparring to when he was out in America last year. I took him out to America, sparring Manny Robles III, who just fought for a world title, sparring Lee Selby out there and other fighters, and he was good out there, and I was buzzing, and that was after Tinoco, and I was buzzing. We're looking at sparring there, and we're looking at the sparring that he's doing now consistently, and he's another level. You look at the Bellotti fight, and I look at him now, he's got another level from that. I'm telling you now, and people can say all they want. Sometimes he was ill, 100%, but he lost because he made the wrong decisions in the fight. He lost because of what he did, but he was 100% ill. And that had an effect on how he performed. That's as simple as that. But that loss is the best thing for his development and what's to make him the fighter that he is today. That is the best thing that's ever happened to him. Because now he's, without a doubt, for me, out of all the fighters that I've ever coached and I've worked with in gym, he is the best fighter I've ever worked with. It's just that nobody sees it yet. Skill for skill, and ability and talent and everything that he's doing in that gym on consistently on a daily basis, every time he's sparring against numerous different sparring partners, the things that we're working on, it's not just, it's not about, you win every round, you do it. Go out and do this. Go out and do that. I want you this round, I want you to do this. This round, I want you to do that. And it goes, and it does. And if it doesn't come off initially, he'll keep going. A few spars down the line, bing, click, there you go. And that's how he's progressing in his levels. He's the best fighter I've ever worked with. And I just want people to see it. Unfortunately, there's a segment of people that if you're a good boxer and you're not going out there blasting everyone out, he'll never make it. He don't punch hard enough. There are plenty of fighters out there, the world champions, that aren't knockout merchants, that don't go out blasting people out. Plenty of fighters that are good boxers. And this kid his all-round games improved so much, and I'm just so impressed with his mentality, how he's handled things, how he's come back from such a bad spot. And like I said, when he was ill, when he had the thyroid issue, we didn't think he would win a box again. And I was worried that if he did, how is this going to affect him? And thank God, physically, mentally, and skill for skill and ability-wise in the gym, he's just gone another level. And, I just want the platform for him. That's it. He's, you know, and we understand we need to take fights. We, you know, we've said that. I've said that to Eddie. He's ready. He's ready. And the best thing is as well, Eddie talks about fighters staying ready and this, that, and other. We've been ready all the way through the last pandemic. He fought in August, I think it was, and then he had 2-3 weeks off. Been in the gym ever since. Ticking over. Because we was eyeing at January, so Christmas and New Year, he was on it. He's good to go for a 12-rounder right now at 9 stone. For a day, for the February shows, he's good to go for 12 rounds. That's a professional, that is. He's got no fight date. But he's ready. It's not about just staying ready. He's ready to go. He's ready to fight. He's ready to fight at a championship weight, not 3 or 4 pounds over. You know, he's working a fantastic nutritionist in Scott Robinson. He's been a massive help. He's physically matured over the last 12 months. And he's in a great place. And so, yeah, I couldn't be any happier with those two guys that were mentioned, Jordan and Hopey.
Dave, just a couple of things I just want to touch on before we kind of delve into some fights which are coming up and continuing to talk about your guys. You mentioned how Jordan's the best that you feel you've worked with. You've got Jordan, you've got Hopey Price, Lerone Richards. In years gone by, not in years gone by, in the last few years, you've seen the likes of Tony Bellew, the McDonough brothers, Fowler, all of them experienced, all of them achieved a lot, whether it be as amateurs or in the world seen as professionals. It's almost kind of a changing of the guard in your own gym in some respects, for this older generation, if you will, for these young and hungry guys coming through. How have you found that from a trainer's perspective? Effectively, have you found yourself having to change your own training techniques to cater towards the younger guys coming through, or has everything kind of continued to tick over in the same manner?
Don't forget, I had this before. I think within a couple of weeks of each other, Ryan Rhodes and Kell Brook winning British titles, and then Ryan going on to winning European and fighting Canelo, and then, you know, at that same sort of time, I think I had Curtis Woodhouse coming through, and I've had different periods in the gym with fighters before, and then when Ryan retired, I stepped away from coaching fighters, and I sent all my fighters off to, you know, I wasn't seeing my family. I wasn't getting to spend time with my little boy or my daughter. But my little boy was a baby at the time. I wasn't seeing him because he was in bed by the time I was getting back from the gym. So I packed in coaching. So yeah, I came back with Tony, but it was only, I don't see myself as a, you know, I'm a boxing coach. If I'm getting asked by these fighters to coach them, to help them, then if we gel and if I like them, if it's, you know, Bellew because he was my mate, you know, Pricey because he was my mate and he asked me, and that's how it's kind of worked, each one. So when Bellew's retired, obviously, then it was a case of you're just carrying on with the guys that you've got. Jordan's in the gym, and then obviously Hopey's popped up, and then Lerone Richards popped up. So it's just a conveyor belt. There's no formula to it. It's every fighter, whether it was in the past or whether it's now, every fighter needs their own particular attention to detail. There are things that just because they're both southpaws, Lerone I'll do different with Hopey, and Hopey I'll do different to Lerone, because they're both southpaws, but they do things differently, both different sort of styles. And then obviously Jordan. Jordan's the only orthodox in the gym now. But yeah, so each fighter always needs catering, tailor-made sort of thing, rather than just a same sort of formula as what I've done all along. It's like I trained these three completely different to how I trained Bellew. They're different. There are certain elements of that in there. It's the same sort of thing. But yeah, each fighter is different. So that's always been the case with me, regardless. But it's been nice because it's been a case of where it's kind of like been a bit under the radar, because obviously they're not in big fights. They're not being in big. This next few months, this year, is where it's kind of like, oh, okay, he's stepping up again now, because obviously Hopey's, even though It's only his fourth fight. It's a big fight, 3-0 against a 16-1, and everybody's talking about it. It's like, whoa, so that's a big fight. But then obviously I'm waiting on Jordan's. Jordan's should be a big fight, should be announced. Lerone, European title. So we're back into that now. So it's been nice, it's been good, but I'm buzzing to be getting involved in the big fights again.
Dave, just want to touch on another man who you talk about the need for boxing to step away from the idea of effectively protecting their own, and we need to take maybe a bit more of an approach at the UFC, see where opportunities continue to go despite any losses on their records. Lee Wood lost in the Golden Contract tournament. Now he's fighting for that vacant British title against Reece Mould. Is that just kind of another example of what can happen and to keep yourself motivated? And secondly, what do you actually expect in that fight next week?
Well, firstly, the fight that he lost was against a quality fighter in Jazzy Dickens. It was coming off good performances in the tournament. It was on a good little run, but being totally honest, he's now with Ben Davison, and he's learning. Listening. Some fighters, they have the most successful periods in the 30s. In my experience with my fighters, Bellew, Ryan Rhodes, during the 30s when it all just blew up for him. And I think Lee Wood's one of those fighters. I think he's one of those fighters. I think he's kind of like got a new lease of life under Ben. The key thing is that he's learning, and he feels that he's improving every single day. I'm speaking to Ben. Ben's got the same man as me. When Lee came for some sparring once, I just took him on pads, and took him up because Jordan's always been saying, Dave, just take Lee on pads, just take Lee on pads. He punches like a fucker. I'm like, well, I watched him fight, and he looks like he can whack, but I think you're going over the top when you're talking about he's the hardest hitter, that's around. Took him on the pads. I was like, fucking hell. Where is that from? But he's never been taught how to deliver that. Ben's working on that, and Ben's teaching him how to deliver it properly. So I'm excited to see how that develops. He's got his hunger back and everything, and he knows how good a fight that Jazzy Dickens fight was. He knows how it was competitive, it was exciting. He got off to a bad start, he came back into it. He showed a lot of mettle in that fight, but he was beaten by the better man on the night. But a more improved Lee Wood, he goes out there and put in a good statement against Reece Mould and get a couple of good wins together. If Jazzy goes and wins the title, then that's a fight down the line. You don't know. You don't know how this game works. And while ever you're in there and you are physically looking after yourself, which Lee Wood's a fantastic athlete, always looked after himself, even in between fights. I think he's too vain to let himself go. He's always in great shape, but now he's learning again, and he's feels that he's improving and adding things to his game. While ever you're in that state of mind and that's happening to you, you're still developing, still improving, then it's never too late. It's never too late. Because history will tell you there are fighters that are in the 30s, late 30s, that end up clicking and it all comes together. So it's all a process. It's who gives up when, it's who listens to the doubters and people from outside the circle that don't really matter. And it's who believes that they can do it. If you're ticking all the boxes and if you're doing it right, then why not? So I look forward to seeing how Lee performs against Reece Mould. But I'm excited by it. I'm excited to see what the adjustments are, improvement. And don't forget, it's his first camp. I always say the first fight that you have with your new coach is always difficult. There's new things to think about, new things to go into ring with, new things that you've been working on, but then holding the shit together during the fight. It's the first time the guy comes and he shows his face in the corner. It's a different picture to what you're used to throughout your career. So it's always takes a couple of fights. So however good or bad he looks on February 13th, there will be an improvement for the next fight. So if he goes out there and looks sensational in that fight, there will be an improvement because it's more natural. It's more of a natural fit because there's more time with the coach. There's more trust there. So give it time. But I'm excited to see how that relationship develops.
Dave, I just want to get your thoughts on the headline fight for that. Josh Warrington versus Mauricio-Lara. Not the fight we all expected to see, the Kanju fight. What's your thoughts on kind of all of that and the Kid Galahad situation as well?
Listen, I've been around boxing long enough and I've seen it happen with so many different fighters that the fight that's supposed to happen right now doesn't happen, gets pushed to one side, something happens, blah, blah, and then they go a different avenue. Loads of fighters have done it. I don't know about the negotiations. I don't know about all the politics side of shit because I'm not Josh Warrington's or Kid Galahad's manager. So I don't really know. What I do know from a fan's point of view is the Lara fight. It is what it is. It's a fight before a big fight, and sometimes that happens in boxing. The pressure is that the next fight has to be a big fight. It has to be, because if you're going to do, and I think I've probably done it myself where we've took a fight first before a big fight. That shit happens. Sometimes it's just how boxing works. But whatever reason, Kanzu didn't come over. We are in the middle of a pandemic, so things are a little bit tricky. So for whatever reasons, that didn't happen. I would have liked to have seen Eddie pick up the phone to Kid Galahad or Domingo, whoever's looking after Kid Galahad, and say, let's see if we can make this fight. But you're dealing with Steve Wood and Josh Warrington. If I'm Steve Wood and if I'm managing Josh Warrington, am I going to turn around and say, when we don't have to, let's go and fight Kid Galahad? I'm a fuck. Because unless you have to fight him, why would you fight him? Because you've already fought him, and it's a fight that a lot of people think you lost. It's a fight that could have gone either way, and it wasn't a fight. Even if you beat Kid Galahad, you're not going to look good doing it. So if you're putting yourself, from a manager's point of view, if you're putting your fighter into a fight with the eyes of the one after, is going to be a unification, is going to be you need to entice one of the big names across the waters. Why the fuck are you going to put him in with Kid Galahad? Because if you do beat Kid Galahad, it's still going to be a rough, horrible fight that might not be great to watch, and your value might go down. Because after the first Kid Galahad fight with Josh Warrington, did Warrington's value go up? Watching that fight, would you say, if that was the first time that you're watching Josh Warrington in that fight with Kid Galahad, would you say he's a must watch? He needs to be fighting the division's best. And that's what you get with Kid Galahad. Or he's going to beat you. So I understand why you won't want to take that fight. The problem is, again, it's pandemic. It's a bit difficult. Who's knocking about? Who's going to do the weight in a period of time that you've got until the show? We've got this Lara, but surely there's somebody better than Lara. Surely. So I get the circumstances, but I'd like to have seen somebody a little bit better than Lara in the ring, personally. But now, like I said, they have to deliver. The next fight has to be delivered. Has to be. And I think I heard I saw something. I don't know if it's true or not, but when it went to a purse bid, I believe that Warrington vacated because the purse bid was 1 for 50 grand, which when it was him and Kid Galahad, the purse bid was 50 grand. You're not fighting fucking Kid Galahad on a purse bid of 50 grand. So yeah, you are going to give up the title. So forget about all the other reasonings. That is just the final nail in the coffin. If the purse bid is 50 grand for you to defend your world title against Kid Galahad, the purse bid, not your purse, that is your purse bid. You're not going to fight. You're going to say, bollocks to that title. We'll take this fight now and we'll fight for another title or a big fight, and you know, after that one. So I get it. But I get Kid Galahad being pissed off as well. It's a situation all round. I get it.
Just a couple of thoughts I want to get your thoughts on, Dave, before I do leave you to enjoy the rest of your evening. A week after February 13th, we finally, hopefully, get to see Josh Kelly versus David Avanesyan. I think it's the fourth time lucky, I believe. Just your thoughts, provided it does go ahead this time.
Oh, do you know what? I can't wait for that fight. I cannot wait for that fight. I can't wait for it first time around. It's exciting, isn't it? This is what we need to see. You know, Josh Kelly's unbelievable talent. He's going in against a hard as nails fighter in Avanesyan. Hard as nails. I've got a feeling, whereas going back a while, maybe I thought, maybe that's. Do you know what? I've got a feeling Josh Kelly's going to put on a clinic. I don't think he's going to go in there to excite us and be all dynamic and everything. I think he's going to go in there to just box, hit and don't get hit. And I think he's going to outbox Avanesyan. I think he's going to go on and put on a real. Do you know what? Every now and again, Adam Booth has a fight or a fighter where he puts them in, and it's don't worry about entertaining. Don't worry about you know, fighting for the crowd. Just get that win. Just you've got better feet than him. You've got better boxing ability than him. You know, just don't stand with him at all. Don't stand and fight with him. I think maybe this might be that one, and I think especially early doors until he feels that strength sapping. I do. I think he'll put on a really good boxing clinic, and I think Kelly wins the fight.
Another fight on that card I know you'll have a vested interest in is Amy Timlin, Kylie Skelly too. Dave, what happens this time round?
So it's another one of those fights. So going back to what we're saying about when a young fighter or an inexperienced fighter or whatever goes in, because of women's boxing, the depth of women's or lack of depth in the women's game right now, they're getting opportunities earlier. So you've seen that with Rachel Ball, you've seen that with Shannon Courtney fighting for world titles and things like that after a handful of fights. Amy Timlin, 4-0, goes in for a Commonwealth title fight. And I think the occasion from boxing on small old boxing to then being put in the big Super Bowl, matchroom show, TV cameras, all that sort of thing, the fight bubble, everything like that, no crowds, things like that. I think she froze a little bit, and because she boxed completely different to what I've seen her box. Everything, you know, that led me to sign her, she boxed completely different. And she still did well. It was a draw. It could have gone either way. Possibly Skelly probably nicked it, but it was a draw. Could have gone either way. I expected to have learned from it, and that's what this game's about. Learn from it. This is, you know, you've now had 5 fights now, still an experience, but that one fight, she'll have learned so much more in that fight than all the 4 previous fights. So I'm excited because I know what Carly's going to do. Carly's going to come for it again, and now she'll believe that she can win. So she'll be coming even harder. It'll be an even better fighter, because the first fight was good. It was a good advert for women's boxing. This fight will be really good. This one will be so much better. Both girls know each other a little bit more. Both girls fancy it that little bit more. They're both used to the circumstances and how, you know, how the setup is. I think it's going to be a great fight.
Final thing, Dave, before I do let you shoot off, it seems to be we're edging ever closer to an official announcement for Canelo versus Billy Joe Saunders. In your eyes, Dave, does Billy Joe possess the style to overcome the pound-for-pound star in Saul Canelo Alvarez?
I think he's got the style. I think he's definitely got the style. I think Billy Joe Saunders, at his absolute best, is a phenomenal fighter. I think he's definitely got, at his best, he's definitely got a style to possibly beat Canelo. The problem that I've got is that whereas I'm looking at Canelo being consistent at the top level, it's consistent. Billy's not consistent, and I look at him and he'll look flat, or he'll be a bit lethargic, or he'll not he's not in the best condition or anything like that. I just think to beat the elite guys, it's not a case of 12-week, 14-week camps. I think you've got to be consistent over a period of time, being at your best. So each camp you're improving, not staying the same. And I think Canelo's got better and better as the years have gone. And I just think it's a very, very tough fight for Billy now. But that's only because of what he's allowed us to see, if you understand what I'm saying. I've seen Billy Joe Saunders close up, and I think he's phenomenal. I've seen him when he's out of shape sparring in Ingles' gym, and he's just, what he does is subtle and brilliant. But I've seen Canelo up close as well, and just that. I remember just seeing that when Ryan Rhodes boxed Canelo. I remember round one, and I just saw the little subtle stuff that you don't pick up on video on YouTube. And you just see just how the timing and the distance that he has. His distance is unbelievable. And obviously that's way back then. And then I commentated for Sky with Canelo boxing Danny Jacobs. And you saw the difference from when Ryan fought him, and I saw the difference there up close to then. He's a phenomenal fighter. So for me, he's been improving, adding layers to himself. And Billy's kind of like flattered to deceive more often than not. Billy Joe at his absolute best has a chance, but I just don't know if he, at this stage of his career, if he can keep doing what he needs to be doing for 12 rounds against Canelo. I'm not sure.
I know I said that was my last one, Dave, but this is my last one, I promise. Something just popped into my head. Ryan Garcia, Manny Pacquiao, he's kind of being discussed. We saw Ryan Garcia put a poster up. Just your thoughts if we saw that fight confirmed and the pair of them lock horns?
So originally when I saw it, I thought, all right, if the Tank fight can't happen now, if the Haney fight can't happen now, I'll have that. It's a good fight. But then I saw about this exhibition. I was like, what the fuck? Why? You're two licensed professional fighters, top fighters, why you have an exhibition? So that kind of put me off a little bit. But then I saw a post from Ryan Garcia on his Instagram yesterday or day before yesterday, where he says, forget the rumors. If this fight happens, it's definitely not an exhibition. So if this is a fight, it's a good fight. I can have that. I'd like to know what weight it's going to be. But that's a good fight, and fair play to the kid. I like Ryan Garcia. In the build-up to the Campbell fight, I watched a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, listening about his family, stuff that he's been through. I originally had this false perception because he's, the Instagram shit and stuff like that. I kind of thought he'll probably be one of these spoiled kids that's, a bit soft once it gets going. It gets a bit tough. I heard about his, what he's gone through with his family, his dad losing his home and things like that. Listen, you survived that sort of shit. You're a tough little bastard, And then I didn't realize that he'd been boxing for so long, had so many amateur fights and things like that. So he's put in the work. It's just that he's very good at marketing himself. So you can't knock a fighter for that. So the Campbell fight I thought was a big step up for him, and he showed so much in that fight, and so much he'll take on board and become a better fighter from. But to go in, I don't care. I know Manny Pacquiao's 40 years old or whatever. He's not at his best and his peak. But Ryan Garcia's not at his best yet, and he's not fully developed yet. So it's a really good fight. It's a really good fight. And if you were to say to me, Ryan Garcia's fighting Keith Thurman, I would say that's a really good fight. Well, Manny Pacquiao beat Keith Thurman. So if you haven't got a problem with a Thurman Garcia, then can't really have a problem with Manny Pacquiao, really. I know he's older. He's not fought for a bit. So again, it's one of those things where you look at timing and you think, well, is that so? In the case of your development for your fighter, before he goes into the big super fights, your Tanks, your Haney, your Lopez, your Lomachenko's, they won't put me on with him. But if you're looking at how can you gain experience and gain the ring knowledge before you go in with one of them. That's kind of like what we would do before I put Jordan Gill in, you know, in a world title fight against one of the top world champions. You kind of like go a faded American name, a faded, you know, a former champion. So what's the difference? There is no difference. If you're looking at that mindset to develop Garcia, it's what it is. I think it's a good fight.
Dave, we will leave it there now, and I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your evening. Like I say, I'll catch up with you again soon. Thanks for your time, and thanks, Speeds Boxing Social.
Pleasure, mate. Speak to you later.